A mother black panther was losing. Her powerful body, masterpiece of stealth and strength, was failing. Ice clung to her fur in heavy, painful clumps, and each step was a battle against the crushing weight of the storm against her chest. She sheltered the only thing that mattered, tiny, fading warmth that was her cub. Hope was a luxury she could no longer afford. Survival was slipping through her claws. Then a flicker through the chaos, a ghostly golden light, a cabin, the scent of man, of smoke, of danger, hit her like a physical blow. Every instinct screamed at her to turn away, to flee into the forest she knew. But the life draining from her cub was a louder, more terrifying scream. She made a choice. Dragging herself onto the wooden porch, she lifted a paw that could tear a man apart and tapped on the door. It was a faint, desperate scratch, a sound of absolute surrender against the storm's fury. Inside, Ranger Evan heard the sound and frowned. He opened the door, and the world went silent. A black panther lay on his porch, looking more like a statue of ice than a living creature. Tucked beneath her was a cub. So still, it might already be gone. Evan's mind, drilled with years of wilderness protocol, flashed with warnings. Apex predator, unpredictable, lethal. But then he met the mother's eyes. There was no challenge, no predator's glare, just a raw, silent question that cut straight through his training. His training screamed danger, but his humanity screamed louder. Couldn't close the door. It wasn't a choice. It was a command from somewhere deeper. He stepped back and opened it wider. The great cat seemed to understand the gesture. With a pained groan, she used the last of her reserves to haul herself inside. She nudged her cub toward the radiant warmth of the hearth with her nose. A final act of a devoted mother before her legs gave out, and she collapsed onto the floor. Evan's training now took over in a different way. He wasn't assessing a threat. He was performing a rescue. Grabbed towels, working with a focused urgency, rubbing the caked-on ice from the tiny cub. Feeling the terrifying cold of its fur, he felt for a pulse, a breath, and found one, faint but steady. He wrapped the cub in a warm blanket and placed it by the fire. He then turned to the mother. As he gently worked the ice from her face and ears, she watched him, her amber eyes never leaving his. She was too weak to move, too exhausted to fight, but she was conscious. She was allowing this. The strange, two-legged creature was touching her, and she was letting him. It was a truce born of absolute desperation. The first 24 hours were a fragile, silent dance. Evan slept in a chair by the door, halfway between an escape route and a guard post. The mother panther barely moved, her breathing shallow. Cub was a tiny, unmoving bundle. On the second day, a change. The cub made a small noise, a weak cry for its mother. Warmed some milk formula, and holding his breath, extended the bowl. The cub on shaky legs began to lap at it. The sound of her cub eating seemed to jolt the mother back to life. She lifted her head, her gaze clear and sharp, and let out a deep, vibrating purr that resonated through the cabin floor. It was a sound of profound relief. By the fourth day, the atmosphere in the cabin had transformed. The panthers were stronger, their coats regaining their glossy sheen. A strange domesticity had settled. Over them, Evan would read by the fire, and the mother would watch him, her eyes filled with a calm, unnerving intelligence. She was studying him, learning him. One morning, he woke in his chair to a heart-hopping sight. The mother panther had left her spot by the fire and was sleeping on the rug beside his chair. She hadn't sought the fire's warmth. She had sought his. In his most vulnerable state, while he slept, she had chosen to be his guardian. Weeks later, the world had thawed, but the danger had not passed. One evening, Evan went out for firewood. A patch of melted snow had refrozen into a sheet of black ice. His feet went out from under him, tumbled down a short, steep embankment, and his leg slammed against a fallen log. A sharp, sickening crack of bone echoed in the quiet air. Pain, white, hot, and absolute, exploded through him. He was trapped, his leg pinned beneath the dead weight. He yelled until his throat was raw. The wind carried the sound away. The cold began its insidious work, seeping through his clothes, numbing his limbs. Desperation set in. He was alone, helpless, and the temperature was dropping fast. Inside the cabin, the mother panther shot to her feet. A low, anxious growl vibrated through the floorboards. The man's sense of safety and calm had been replaced by a sharp spike of pain and fear on the wind. Her cub was safe, but the guardian of this den was in trouble. Her loyalty, now absolute, overrode everything else. She burst through the door. A missile of black fur launched into the twilight. She found him pale and shivering, his consciousness fading for a terrifying second. Heaven thought his rescuer was about to become his end, but her eyes held no malice. They were focused, determined. She nudged his face, a rough, wet lick of her tongue. Then she went to work. She began digging furiously at the snow and frozen earth around the log, her powerful paws acting like shovels. She pressed her warm, muscular body against his, a desperate transfer of life-saving heat. Then she braced herself against the log. A guttural roar of pure effort tore from her throat as she pushed with all the force of her wild strength. The log scraped against the frozen ground. It shifted an inch, then another. With a final explosive heave, it rolled free. Evan, gasping, pulled his shattered leg from the indent. He looked at the panther. She stood over him, panting heavily. A fierce, protective sentinel. In the darkening woods, she had returned the gift of life. When spring finally arrived in full, the forest called to them. Evan knew his leg was healing, and the panthers were wild things that didn't belong in his world. No matter how much a part of him they had become, he opened the door. The mother led her cub, now strong and curious, to the edge of the trees. There she stopped. She turned and held his gaze for a long moment. There was a universe of understanding in that look she gave him. A slow blink, a sign of ultimate trust and acknowledgement in her world. Then she and her cub vanished into the green depths. Evan never saw her up close again. But their story wasn't over. Sometimes in the quiet of the morning, he'd find fresh tracks in the soft earth by his cabin. One large, one small. They were a silent greeting, a reminder of the impossible bond they had forged. A heart-pounding testament that sometimes in the heart of the wildest storms, you find the most unbelievable connections. Comment below with an emoji that shows how this story made you feel. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from the wild. This powerful story of loyalty, survival, and the unbelievable bond between a man and a desperate mother panther touched your heart, then don't let it end here. For more breathtaking wildlife rescues, emotional animal stories, and the hidden connections that define life in the wild, join us at Vanished Giants. Subscribe to Vanished Giants for daily stories that honor the forgotten, the endangered, and the extraordinary. Like, comment, and share to help more people see why every creature deserves compassion. Stay with us and witness moments where the wild reveals its deepest truths. Vanished Giants, where the world's most powerful animal stories are never forgotten.